When the boy came home from school, he found two identical pots on the stovetop. One pot had no meat, while the other was filled with large chunks of meat. The meaty pot was for his stepmother and stepsister, but his own pot only had a few flecks of meat foam. Feeling like an outsider in the family, the boy vowed to leave home when he grew up. So after graduating from high school, he left for good. 15 years passed. He had become a renowned entrepreneur, wealthy and powerful, living in a mansion, while his stepmother and stepsister still resided in their shabby old house. Though he had tasted every luxury food, he longed for the beef stew with potatoes his late mother used to make. Hearing about a small shop that helped customers rediscover nostalgic flavors, he decided to give it a try. He told the shopkeeper's daughter, "My mother died when I was 5. A year later, my father married our nanny who had cared for Mom, and she brought along a stepsister 7 years older. My father died when I finished primary school, so I lived with my stepmother and stepsister until high school graduation. Even after all those years, I always felt like a stranger, miserable every day." He vaguely remembered his mother's stew was redder than others. Each time he ate it, images of rolling mountains would flash before his eyes. But with only this vague description, replicating the flavor seemed impossible. He had long given up, yet the shop slogan drew him in. That night, the shopkeeper decided to take the order. The next morning, he traveled to the man's hometown in search of clues. On the way, he shared his food with an elderly man, who, upon learning his mission, taught him the local beef stew recipe. But after a full day, he couldn't find a stew matching the man's description. The shopkeeper then visited the stepmother's home using the address provided. 2 weeks later, the man returned to the restaurant as agreed. When the shopkeeper served the dish, the man wore a conflicted expression. After a slow taste, he said disappointedly, "This isn't my mother's flavor, it's my stepmother's." He turned to leave, but the shopkeeper stopped him. "If you recognize this as your stepmother's cooking, stay a while longer. Let me tell you the story behind this dish." The shopkeeper's daughter showed him a photo of his stepmother. It turned out that since his stepsister married, the stepmother had lived alone in the old house. She had given the shopkeeper a notebook, recording every detail of his eating habits from childhood. His biological mother had entrusted the notebook to the stepmother at age 5, knowing her health was failing. Tears welled up as he saw his mother's handwriting. He had hated carrots as a child, so his mother pureed them into the soup, giving it that red hue. Later, when he could tolerate carrots, his stepmother cut them into chunks instead. When he tasted the revised stew served by the daughter, it was exactly his mother's flavor. The shopkeeper added, "About those 2 pots years ago, your stepmother didn't put meat in your pot earlier, because she waited for you to come home from school to add the beef, fearing it would stick to the pot if cooked too long. She wasn't biased. She was faithfully keeping your birth mother's wishes. She's prouder than anyone of your success. And though you send her money monthly, she's touched." The man said guiltily, "I sent money to keep them in that house."